And in many ways, this goes back to my philosophy on how I view my job as a mayor. I spent about a decade in the private sector before I took office. And I view my job as a mayor as an asset manager. How do I manage these city's assets and make sure that these assets are producing a real economic return for the taxpayers and the residents of Cleveland? And we had a lot of underperforming assets. Not only is our vacant land an underperforming asset, we had a West Side Market that was run by the city and not well maintained.
Welcome to An Honorable Profession, a podcast focused on incredibly talented people who've dedicated themselves to public service when their country and communities needed it the most. I'm Ryan Coonerty. Along with Debbie Cox Bultan of the NewDEAL, I'm lucky enough to be your co-host. The NewDEAL is an organization that supports the next generation of American leaders. Check out newdealleaders.org to find out more.
My guest today is NewDEAL leader Justin Bibb, the inspiring mayor of Cleveland, Ohio, who was recently elected to a second term. Mayor Bibb and I talk about his work to revitalize Cleveland, a legacy American city, by focusing on neighborhood-level industrial policy. He shares the story of his recently announced Midline project, which will bring industry back to too long ignored neighborhoods and create not just jobs, but pathways of opportunity. We also talk about what leadership looks like in today's political climate, his advice for national Democrats, why being mayor of his hometown is the best job he'll ever have, and what he hopes people will be saying about Cleveland 10 years from now. I really hope you enjoy. All right, Mayor Justin Bibb, welcome to An Honorable Profession.
Thanks for having me.
So fun to have you here. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. You're doing such incredible, important work in Cleveland, and I've been really looking forward to having a conversation with you about this new project you announced in May, the Midline project, which is so much more than a project. It's really an approach of thinking about governing, how to revitalize neighborhoods, reinvigorate and bring back manufacturing, industrial revolution, if you will. So tell us a little bit about what you were doing there with Midline and the project that was announced recently.
Well, this project called the Midline in Cleveland is personal to me and personal to so many Clevelanders because many of us got to Cleveland because our grandparents either came here during the great urban migration from the South or came as immigrants from around the world because of the jobs that we had in Cleveland. Both sets of my grandparents came to Cleveland from Georgia and Alabama to work in the steel mills, to work in the auto plants, to work in advanced manufacturing. And we all know how the story went. The economy changed, jobs got shipped overseas, that labor was outsourced, and many of those factories, many of those companies left Cleveland. And they left Ohio. And unfortunately, prior to me taking office for the past few decades, Cleveland didn't really have a game plan. We didn't really have a sound, proactive economic development strategy and vision to really ensure that our city and our region could be prosperous long term. And so in many ways, the COVID-19 pandemic created a unique opportunity for us in Cleveland and for many cities, legacy American cities like Cleveland across the country for a couple of reasons. I think first, number one, we were really blessed under the leadership of President Biden to have a president who believed in investing in America's cities. Yeah. And we received the 8th largest allocation of funding through the American Rescue Plan, $512 million to really rebuild our economy coming out of the pandemic. And our largest allocation of funding went to create the Site Readiness Fund for Good Jobs. This is a $50 million investment. We're on pace to raise another $50 million. We raised $80 million to date. And the goal is to convert 1,000 acres of brownfield land in the heart of Cleveland's inner city to make that land shovel-ready job sites for the present and the future. And this is important because we all know that companies need two things right now to compete: land and labor. And when we took office in 2022, we didn't have any 10 plus acre sites for jobs to expand in Cleveland or come to our city. And so quietly, we assembled nearly 350 acres of land to create this ambitious project called the Midline through that site readiness fund that I just talked about. And this is the largest redevelopment in the city's history. And this business park will be a best in class business park. It's going to create 2,500 good paying jobs in the heart of Cleveland's inner city. And we'll be making our first major company announcement this week about a company setting up shop in the Midline. So in many ways, this is a prime example of having a thoughtful public-private partnership, of having a proactive industrial policy as a legacy American city, and really making sure that we're prioritizing people as we think about economic development long-term.
I mean, just tell us a little bit about what it's so interesting. We're talking about this like at the 250th as well, right? That these, American cities. I'm a huge fan of some of America's greatest cities, and there really was this period of stagnation, a period of people leaving the cities that was accelerated by COVID. What were you looking at when you came into Cleveland to say, we want to turn this around? Like, what was the trajectory? What were some of the trends, and how's that going to change this? This is going to change that.
We had a lot of headwinds. We were ranked one of the poorest big cities in the country before the pandemic. One out of two of our children were living in poverty. So we had a 50% childhood poverty rate. We were ranked by City Lab magazine as the worst city in America for Black women. And there was headline after headline after headline questioning whether or not Cleveland could emerge better out of the pandemic. And so we inherited a lot of headwinds. But as the saying goes, you never want to waste a good crisis. And we really, took advantage of that moment to ask some hard questions, to take some big swings, to really think boldly about not where the puck is, but where the puck was going. And I kept reading article after article about onshoring and reshoring. And when President Biden was in office, he really wanted to make sure that America had a proactive industrial policy. If we're going to make things in America again, well, I want to make sure we're making them in Ohio and in Cleveland once again as well. And that's always been the story of Cleveland. We were once considered America's first Silicon Valley because John D. Rockefeller got his start in Cleveland when he started Standard Oil. Now, it wasn't a green energy revolution, right? But it powered America's first industrial revolution. And those same conditions exist right now to help recharge America's economic comeback. And I really believe Cleveland can be at the top of that list as we chart this next chapter of America's story.
So this must not have been an easy. Well, it was a road. I'll let you characterize the road. It was a road to bring people along, to share your vision, to find the funding. This was not a, and I think that this, and I harp on this because I think it's so instructive to cities across the country that are thinking about revitalization, and that this is, you've really approached this as a whole of city strategy, right? You've talked about this not just being about jobs, but about pathways to home ownership, to building house, so many different things. So let's talk a little bit about I'm curious to kind of how you brought together such a broad coalition of philanthropy, of corporate interests, of neighborhood folks around this vision. Where do you even start? How do you get people on board?
Well, one of the greatest tools that any mayor in this country has is the tool and the power of convening. We as mayors can really set the table for effective, highly aligned, highly coordinated public-private partnerships. And we recognize that, City Hall couldn't do it alone. We needed a robust and thoughtful private sector to be at the table. And in many ways, this goes back to my philosophy and how I view my job as a mayor. I spent about a decade in the private sector before I took office. And I view my job as a mayor as an asset manager. How do I manage these city's assets and make sure that these assets are producing a real economic return for the taxpayers and the residents of Cleveland? And we had a lot of underperforming assets. Not only is our vacant land an underperforming asset, we had a West Side Market that was run by the city and not well maintained. We had a golf course that was run by the city and not well maintained. We have two waterfronts that has yet to be developed until we took office. Airport, same thing. And so taking that viewpoint, we really focused on how do we take these underperforming vacant lots that's a drain on our budget, a drain on our balance sheet, and put them into productive use. And listen, it took a lot of politicking and convincing to convince then 17 members of city council to give me the authority to send the largest allocation of our ARPA funds, $50 million, to put in this fund. Because you have certain council people on the east side want their money for their projects. Certain council folks on the west side want their money for their projects. And historically, a city like Cleveland has not been as competitive as we should have been or could have been because we were spreading our resources like peanut butter, appeasing one interest group over the other. That's not how you win in today's highly competitive economic environment. You have to have focus. You need to have a clear understanding of your value proposition, and you need to have a clear idea on what's going to generate maximum returns long term for the working class of your city. And that's really where we sold them on the site readiness fund, really making sure that these jobs were going to be family sustaining high wage jobs, ensuring that it was going to be aligned to the growth sectors of our city. So aerospace, advanced manufacturing, food and beverage manufacturing, healthcare, technology. And we all know that a thriving neighborhood can't grow and sustain itself without good paying jobs. And so luckily we were able to make our case. And I'm just really excited about the model we're creating in the country around what sound economic development policy can look like in the core now more than ever.
It feels like we hear so much about kind of trust in government. And when you're taking a big swing like this, there's a lot of trust that I assume has to go into, your vision, your leadership, the fact that you're going to get done what you said you're going to get done, getting that first philanthropy to say, yes, we're in, or whatever it is. Why do you think you were able to build the trust, both with whether it was with your city council members or your philanthropy or your neighborhoods? What is it that made them say, okay, let's do this?
Well, as my late grandmother once said, well done is better than well said. And
like that.
I think there were a couple of things that allowed us to build that credibility. I think number one, we stood up the fund and took it outside of City Hall. And that gave us the ability to move fast. It gave us the ability to be very creative in terms of community engagement and making the business case in community with residents. And it also gave us the ability to quickly accept philanthropic capital from our foundation sector. And so immediately we got funding from the Cleveland Foundation to help manage this fund and help raise capital for this fund. And that was really the first milestone we hit that really allowed stakeholders to say, yeah, this project looks like it can actually be a game changer for Cleveland and for our residents. And then, there was case study after case study after case study of small and medium-sized businesses leaving Cleveland for the suburbs because we didn't have the land ready to go. And so I think all those things laid the groundwork for us to build the trust and credibility that we need. And I would also say this is very antithetical to what we politicians are used to doing. I didn't make a big press release about us assembling the land. We did the work behind the scenes, made sure it was bulletproof before we announced anything. Because time after time after time, we've had fancy press releases, fancy events saying Cleveland's going to come back, Cleveland has made it, and there's no results coming after those fancy announcements. And so it was important for us to do the work behind the scenes, the very unsexy work behind the scenes, acquiring the land, making it site ready, building a pipeline of companies, ensuring that every I was dotted and every T was crossed. allowed us to make sure that when we went out to the public again, it really showed the residents that this administration is serious and that our city and our region have a game plan to compete and win for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's part of the problem with how people feel about government right now is that we're too quick to say things. If mission accomplished comes to mind, right?
Yeah. What not to do.
What not to do.
Yeah.
And it's such a different approach that you're talking about to actually deliver the results and then to show up. I mean, I feel like also change is hard, right? I mean, people are, even if we know change needs to come. You were talking about the fact that you had all these studies that showed people were leaving, and that the land was the reason people were leaving, that they couldn't expand or come. What do how do you tell people, particularly in the neighborhoods where this is going to be transformative, which is so exciting? Are they? I guess I shouldn't make an assumption. Are they excited about it, or did
they
you
are
have
excited?
To kind of,
They're so excited.
You didn't have to say that this is going to be good. They understand that.
Yes, and I think they will be even more excited when we make our big announcement later this week about the first company choosing the Midline as a new destination. I had a resident who spoke at our groundbreaking for the Midline, and she said, Mayor, I've waited 40 years for the city to invest in my neighborhood. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for giving me hope once again that this city belongs to me and is for me as well too. And that's why we do this work. We do this work to do the impossible, give people hope, show them that change is real and that change is possible, and also show them that government can work. And as you see headline after headline after headline of the dysfunction happening in Washington, I think America's mayors are the perfect anecdote to the dysfunction that we see in DC every day, because we don't have the luxury of passing the buck to the next Congress. I get cussed out or yelled at the church or the barbershop or grocery store when I don't do my job. And I'm held accountable every day when I leave my front door. People want to see results, and we don't get it right all the time. But I think we are one of the best examples of the promise of this country and what can be accomplished when we work together in a common sense, pragmatic way to deliver for the American people.
Yeah, well, and one thing that I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think that we just have to get back to the basics, right, of governing, of delivering to people, and stop, kind of the spin and the, what people feel, what they feel, they see what they see, they know what they know. I feel like one of the things that you said earlier was this idea about spreading peanut butter too thin. That's a really interesting thought, because I do think that sometimes people feel like they have to be all things to all people, instead of realizing that by picking something and doing it really well and being a big swing, being transformative, people, even if they're not in that neighborhood where you're talking about, right, they're not going to be touched by that one job. They're going to feel better about the whole city. They're going to feel better about it's going to lift all boats. It's going to, and it also just, kind of, it's this idea of hope and of forward motion. So what do you say to the people who say, well, you're doing this over here, this is your big swing, what about my priority that you're not addressing right now? How do you bring those folks?
It's the hardest part of the job. I'm actually having a tough conversation in the neighborhood this evening, because they've been waiting for 5 years since we took office for a comprehensive investment plan for the neighborhood. And tonight we're announcing that investment plan, but it took us time. And there were other neighborhoods who, needed additional priority when we took office. And so that doesn't negate them not being a priority. But what it does do is it gives us the ability to say, hey, by having more jobs come to the inner city of Cleveland and the Central, Fairfax, and Huff neighborhoods, those are opportunities that people in Slavic Village are going to have now, because those neighborhoods are right next door to Slavic Village. So, and in this case, a rising tide does lift all boats. And you can't do everything at once. And that's just about being honest and being candid about the reality. And it takes longer to create the right economic conditions in one neighborhood over the other. And so you always have to prioritize. And that's the nature of government. And we shouldn't be afraid of compromise. Compromise should not be a dirty word in American politics right now.
Here.
Because we have to do it every day as mayors. right?
Yeah.
But I think more than anything, it's about being honest. It's about being upfront. But it's also, you may not be getting the $50 million project today, but we're fixing your potholes. We're fixing the roads. We're investing in small businesses to prime the pump for that next layer of economic investment. And I think that's how you need to sequence it when talking to voters who may think you're not giving them their fair share. It's everything happening according to what makes sense from a good economic development standpoint.
I feel like what you're saying is, really, frankly, it's just about leader. It's about leadership. It's so hard. Leadership is so hard. And I think that particularly in an environment where we are, where everything is there's so much vitriol, there's so much fighting, there's so much who can be louder. What you're talking about is actually this doing the work piece is I think is an interesting thought, because we're hearing this like sense of urgency, right? People they want to see results. They want to see it now. So how you kind of were mentioning this, but how do you balance presumably an understanding of that? People are frustrated because government hasn't delivered. They want to see results, but also be able to kind of walk and chew gum at the same time, deliver on things that you can in the short run to show that kind of forward momentum and meeting their sense of urgency, while you're also still giving enough time to kind of these longer term investments that are going to take time. Because it feels like you got to do both, right?
You got to do both. And it's connecting the fixing of the potholes, the small business grant, the home that we repaired, as part of the broader work of creating economic growth and economic momentum in a neighborhood. And it's telling that story a million times. And you have to remind people of what it takes. There is no magic wand in politics. If there were a magic wand in politics, our world would look a lot different right now. And this work is always a journey. It always takes time. It's always a work in progress. But I think more than anything else, the residents of Cleveland and the American people want to just know that someone has their back. And they also want to know that, they have a part in the work happening in our city or happening in our country. And that's my assignment every day as mayor.
Why? How did you end up as mayor? You mentioned the private sector. So is this something you've always wanted to come back to and do, or did you kind of take a circuitous route to where you are today?
Kind of both.
Okay.
My first love was basketball. LeBron was dominating high school.
For the Cavaliers? You were going to play for the Cavaliers?
Yeah, that's what I thought. LeBron was dominating high school basketball across Northeast Ohio when I was playing high school basketball, and we all wanted to be the next LeBron James.
Did you play against him?
I did not play against him.
Okay. Did you have to guard LeBron?
I know what the result would have been if I did play against him. And my mom quickly had a very hard conversation with me after I tore my meniscus my sophomore year of high school. She said, "Look, Justin, you ain't gonna be the next LeBron James. You better get in them books and figure out what you're gonna do with your life, because I ain't got no money to pay for college. You pretty smart, and basketball ain't gonna get you there." So I quickly fell in love with mock trial. I didn't make the mock trial team, but I started working on my first campaign in 2004. I worked on the Wes Clark campaign for president. Wow. We all know he didn't get the nomination that year. John Kerry got it.
Oh my gosh, I love Wes Clark.
He was a great candidate. He was a great candidate.
He was.
And I worked on the Kerry campaign. And then I got a scholarship to go to Georgetown for the Junior Statesman of America program. And I started my own student government in high school and led a youth policy summit at City Hall as a senior. And I said to myself, maybe one day I can be the mayor of my hometown. And that's when the idea really started. But, I thought I'd work for a long time and go into politics after I had a family and after I'd worked for a while. But sometimes you don't choose the moment chooses you. And COVID happened in 2020. We saw the tragic murder of George Floyd. And I just felt the calling on my heart to stop talking about it, but being about it. And so I quit my job in banking, and the little money I saved up, I poured into the campaign, and I ran as a first-time candidate against 7 other incumbent elected officials. And I came out of nowhere and won the primary by 10 points, and won the general by over 22 points. And so it's a dream come true to be the mayor of my hometown. It's the best job I'll ever have. And I'm so blessed to be able to be in this seat for such a time as this, to really reimagine what Cleveland can be, talk about why Cleveland matters in this moment for our country and our world, and really show the next generation of leaders what kind of change is possible if we don't wait our turn, if we step up now to be of service to the people of this great country.
What do you think gave you the courage to do that, to quit the banking job and throw your hat in the ring? I mean, that's a big decision.
A lot of prayer, a lot of faith. I would also say, my lived experience as a working class kid who grew up in one of the toughest parts of the city at the height of the crack epidemic. I've seen a lot, and I've been through a lot of pain. My family has been through a lot of pain. And I know that pain doesn't compare to the pain that so many residents were going through then and still continue to go through right now. And I've been blessed to have mentors and a support system to get to me to a point where I was working for one of the biggest banks in the country. And I felt a moral obligation to give back. And to me, it was worth the sacrifice to be of service to the residents of my city. And that's really what inspired me. And if I didn't win, I knew I would help change the conversation about what city we could become. And not only did I win, but I was blessed to get reelected last November. And that work continues now in our second term.
Yeah, a pretty big win. So congratulations on that, which I feel like is important to be. And I say it not just to make you feel good, but you should, but also because I think it shows the kind of leadership people are looking for, I think, right? That this was, and I wonder if you think that there are lessons that maybe not just mayors, but national Democrats should be taking from you and your political success as it relates to how you have governed and what that means that we need to do as a party.
Yeah, I would offer a few lessons. I think number one, we need to over communicate our successes. I was reading an article the other day in Bloomberg Business Week about how, America sometimes gets caught up in being an overly procedural, overly lawyerly nation versus cutting through the red tape and just executing and getting things done. And as a mayor, I've tried to do that to the best of my ability. We've made some stumbles. We've had some challenges, but I have an execution first orientation, and that's really been a central thesis of our governing agenda since we took office 4 years ago. So number one, we need to really focus on making the easy things easy and get things done. I think number two, we have to do a better job of focusing on the basics. And to me, it's very simple. It's public safety. Residents want to be safe walking to work or safe driving to work. They want to be safe in a park or a rec center. And they want to make sure that they can, live out their God-given version of the American dream. And to me, that's all, predicated on safety, safety, safety. And that's why that's been my number one priority as mayor, with historic investments in police, historic investments in violence prevention. We've seen a over 30% reduction in homicides since I took office, and we've hired over 300 more police. And we've done historic investments to make sure young people have jobs and opportunity in our city. And the last thing I would say is people want to feel hopeful again. And a big reason why I ran for mayor was I felt that our city had a poverty of ambition. And as Michelle Obama said in her remarks at the opening of the Obama Center several weeks ago, hope is not a platitude, it's a call to action. And everything that we do as mayors, whether it's fixing a pothole, picking up the trash, getting the snow up, putting more cops on the street, it's giving people hope that their city is working for them. Because when that pothole is fixed, when the trash is picked up, when they get that small business grant, then it makes their day easier, it makes their jobs easier. It gives them confidence that government can work and it's working for them. And to me, it may sound simple, but it's the purest form of hope. Government actually doing what they said they were going to do. So for National Democrats, if we focus on those three things, I think we'll be successful this November and hopefully take back the White House as well in 2028.
Yeah, I mean, just following up on that, there is this conversation going on. At the risk of belaboring, because that was such a beautiful way to end your thought. But I think it behoove us to have this conversation too. There's a big conversation about whether or not the Democratic Party should stay the course when it comes to some of the things you're talking about. Go back to basics, deliver. You talked a lot earlier about your public-private partnerships and what that's been able to allow you to do on the Midline. Seems like we're having a conversation right now about whether there should be, some kind of turn to a more socialist, a more, less economic growth-focused agenda. Are you having that conversation in Cleveland? Are you hearing that conversation?
No.
And what?
No, the pundits might be having that conversation in Cleveland. A small number of activists might be having that conversation in Cleveland. But my North Star is very simple. How do I grow our economy and create more high wage jobs in my city? How do I keep our streets safe? How do I have more well-programmed parks and rec centers? And how do I support, our residents and single moms and working class families to have more money at the end of their month versus more month and not enough money on issues like housing and childcare. Those are the things I'm focused on. I don't care what you call it. You can call it a moderate vision, a pragmatic vision, a centrist vision. People don't give a damn what you call it. They want to see the outcome and the results. And so I think we spend too much time talking about, should we be more left or centrist or moderate? That's the wrong conversation. The conversation is, what are we doing every single day we wake up to fight for the American people and deliver for the American people? And what's our agenda to get there? We may disagree on the tactics, but at the end of the day, I think us as Democrats, we all want the same thing. We want safe cities. We want vibrant economies across the country. We want trust restored in our government. We want to eliminate corruption. And we want to give every American a fighting shot at achieving their version of the American dream. To me, that should be the focus of what we focus on every single day. And I'll leave the other parts of that conversation to the folks who watch Meet the Press and this week CNN. But I have about 400,000 residents I work for every day, and they don't care about all that stuff. They just care about results, and that's what my focus is on.
I think that's fair. And I'd like to say too, when people ask me, I think you nailed it hit the nail on the head about, when people ask me about what I think Democrats stand for, I think you said two of them. It's equal opportunity for all people, and it's making government work. I mean, if that was our brand, then I think we'd be in really good shape, actually.
And our best hero was FDR. And now FDR was flawed. He had some issues around segregation and issues around race. But in the day, FDR had a bold vision, a progressive vision, which I agree with, about putting America back to work, having protections, supporting grand visions and a grand bargain like Social Security and programs like that. To me, we can be the party of big, but also be the party of having a big vision that can actually execute.
Yeah, that's right. That's the thing.
Right?
And this community, right? And bringing people together,
Exactly.
A community. We're all in this together. I mean, that to me is the FDR lesson too, right? At a critical time. Let me end on this question. What do you hope people say about Cleveland in 10 years, or just pick a random number? When the people are thinking about, gosh, Cleveland has really become X, what do you want people to say?
I want the world to know Cleveland as a legacy American city that was bold, ambitious, and had an urgent vision of what's possible in this country around how we put people to work, how we prioritize safety, and how we think differently about our climate and our assets, and how we build long-term resiliency. In many ways, Cleveland is America, and America is Cleveland. And we are the epitome of the American comeback story. And so for folks who may seem priced out on the coast or in the South, Cleveland is your home. We are open and ready for business. Choose Cleveland to pursue your God-given version of the American dream, and we'll be here ready to support you.
I love it. We're all moving to Cleveland.
Yes. Go Guardians.
Go Guardians. Thank you so much, Mayor, for joining me today. And really, congratulations on this huge announcement. And we're so excited to see it come even more to fruition. We'll be looking for your next announcement about your company soon. And thank you for just all you're doing for the residents of your city and really the country. So appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
An Honorable Profession is a New Deal Leaders podcast. And because we keep things honorable, no tax dollars were used in the making of this podcast.
This podcast is part of the Democracy Group.